Right? Then you can add your middle finger, so you can do groups of 4. You know, stuff like that.
Right, right.
Yeah, and then beyond that, you know, you can start doing chords. If I did like this sort of A sharp 11 sort of idea. So now I'm, you know, combining hammer-ons with the double thumping, and it's really fun.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
How do you keep it natural? Because I was talking to a drummer earlier this morning, and I told him, you know, it's like I really think it's really cool because even when you play like odd meters and stuff, it keeps the groove going really, and it's not, it never sounds like too constructed or something. But at the same time, it is very advanced. How do you keep it going? You know, keep it human sounding. It never sounds like you know, very constructed, very mechanical or something.
Yeah, that is a matter of, I don't want to say intuition, but feel is not necessarily like the most analytical thing in the world, because basically you have to use your discretion to say this odd meter phrase still sounds not even, but sounds groovy, right? So what makes something groovy? A good test is like, can you nod your head to it?
Right.
Does it feel so angular that you don't really even know, you know, where the one is?
Right.
You want something that is compelling, like, so you want to respond to it. For me, I don't have like a conscious awareness of how I'm doing it, but I do have my own standard of like what is a usable riff and what is too far removed. So you cultivate musicality. It could be melodic aesthetic or rhythmic aesthetic. And I think, you know, listening to a band like Meshuggah is a really good example of how you can impose maybe eighth note based odd meter phrases over a quarter note pulse.
Right.
You know? So part of you is very aware of a quarter note pulse, but you might have a very syncopated pattern that isn't even going. So sometimes polymeters can give you both the odd and the even, the feel of the even.
Do you have like a basic example of like how to do that? How to you know, use those odd phrasings over some beat?
Let me see. We need someone to hold him. Let me see. So you have this, it's less about meter, but the actual phrase is like a lot of groups of 5, so you have 1, 2, 3, or a lot of 4, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. That sort of idea. So
Did you get into that kind of stuff in a natural way? Like for example, I'm thinking of Frank Zappa, who like was once saying that you know, it's easier for him to play his style of music than playing just steady 4/4. Is that something that you always felt comfortable or felt attracted to?
yeah, I think with music there's a degree of like, you are what you eat, you know?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, Frank Zappa, I don't know what he was listening to. He might just have a musical identity that's just way more comfortable with that stuff, but anyone who's listened to a lot of Zappa is going to be more comfortable hearing more other things that are kind of far removed from the traditional song forms and phrasing. I think it's interesting, you know, Indian classical music, you know, tabla and stuff like that, a lot of it's odd meter, based in 9, 11, and this is like their oldest form of music. It's not like prog music to them, right?
Right.
And for them, it's very natural to just count more than 4.
Right.
And it's because maybe they've been hearing it for, and it might speak to the fact that like even meters aren't necessarily the most intuitive because they're even, because now we have a tradition of music that's extremely, extremely old, that's based in odd lengths. So it's relative. The same thing can be said harmonically about scales. We have 7-tone, scales.
Mm-hmm.
There's quarter tone scales where there's notes in between what we consider the shortest distance between notes.
Right.
And to our ear, it's like not even, it's out of tune is what it sounds like, but to people who listen to this music, it actually, they're at home with it. So for me, it was more of a diet of music that encompassed these rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
And by consuming this diet of music, it became like, I feel comfortable with it. It tastes good to me, so yeah, I know how to cook it.
When you went to AIM, some people went to schools like that. Afterwards, they're like, they say on one hand it was a good thing, on the other hand it was a bad thing. What was your favorite part about that experience? Do you have any regrets regarding going there, or would you say it was just perfect way all the way through?
I have no regrets going there. It was the perfect next step.
Right.
Because I was a self-taught guy for over a decade, and then, but I wasn't very good at teaching myself music theory. Mm-hmm. And beyond that, this sort of isolated approach to learning where maybe you're getting a video but there's no actual interaction. Mm-hmm. I found that simply being around the instructors there, they were all accomplished musicians who, when they simply played, it sounded great. Mm-hmm. Or, having, that constant influence of beyond the words in the lessons, there's more that you can learn. The environment, you're constantly learning about music and new things that are being introduced to you. So for me, it was like very expansive. The negative parts were more about my weaknesses as a player, because I felt that I was pretty good at guitar until I had to improvise over, a ballad or something.
Right.
Then all that speed, it needed to be applied in a way that I was never applying it before. Mm-hmm. Navigating my fretboard, I didn't really know how. I could use my ear and I felt very comfortable composing, but I didn't understand the structure behind how I was building chords. So there was a limitation to the expression. Now that I understand what a dominant chord, how it functions in a key, and how it creates a cadence to the one chord, and how it implies mixolydian mode, these things aren't at the forefront of what I'm using when I'm writing, but they're definitely helpful after the fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that really impresses me is how tight the band is. It's like that's another thing where it feels really natural. Did you have to is it like something where you meet up a lot, or you used to play together a lot in a room, or is that just intuition, or just the perfect combination, like stars aligning and everything?
Well, thank you for saying we're tight. We definitely take steps to become a tight band. For instance, everyone practices their parts individually. We practice to a click track. Matt, when he was learning the songs, would slow them down. And he's really methodical with his practice, which yields very good results. So he'll take a section of a song and loop it at maybe 60% of the speed, and he'll do that a ton of times, and then increase it 10%, do that, and then, so by the time you play full speed, your muscle memory is kicked in. And that naturalness you're talking about a lot of times is muscle memory. It's when your brain is, the neural pathways have now formed, and you can execute something without much conscious thought at all. Playing to a click track on stage is extremely helpful, because you'd be surprised, depending on how much sleep you got or how much coffee you had, how fast or slow you think you should play a song,
right.
how nervous you are.
Yeah.
And then practicing alone with the click track just ingrains a really strong internal clock. So it's kind of like how we've approached, being a tight band.
Okay. One question about the future. Can you imagine ever adding just yet another string, for example, like what John Roth does with the high A string, for example, to get that extra range? Are you sometimes thinking about it, or you're just content focusing on the music right now?
Well, it's something we've thought about. I'm just the high A string is like a special order thing. So I've been kind of lazy. Honestly, I have a lot of 8 strings at home, so instead of having a low E, I could potentially have my B as a low string and had a high A. Ibanez made a prototype 9-string guitar, so now maybe I could have this guitar with a high A.
Right.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I have many years of playing in front of me, so I think I'm going to continue experimenting. You know.
One more question about your approach when you're soloing. Do you think in licks, are there like unique licks that you play, or are you trying to get away from that, thinking, you know, not getting stuck in your own cliches, if you know what I mean? I mean, is it like a jazz player who goes, okay, I'm just going to see where this takes me, I'm just going to improvise and create something new, or are there licks that you really like to use that you feel comfortable with?
I think every guitar player, every musician has a framework of developed, mapped out phrases or ideas that they can use over a minor chord or a major chord or whatever. And then there's a percentage of their improvisation that's totally inspired on the moment. I don't do licks as much as there's certain shapes that I find very useful. You know, like if I want to do a major 7th arpeggio, you know, that's a shape I like, or minor shape. Is taking the same basic fingering and just moved whatever intervals I need to create a new tonality, and it's very useful. You know, there's definitely tonalities that I'm fond of, you know, but yeah, you know, for the most part I don't use licks as much as I use frameworks, you know.
So, we're running out of time. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I really enjoyed this. So
yeah, it was good.
Thank you.
Yeah. You think you'll be able to hear the amp on the recording?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a little piece of
We
machinery,
also
but
did
it's
some
fine.
extra audio recording in the camera, and I think you recorded with a cell phone, so we got like 3 sources. One of them should hopefully work.